on that. All right. Item number 2 is a resolution reappointing and appointed members of the Montgomery Exposition Cooperative District by Mr. Charlie Jimwright. Mr. Jimwright?
By the
Yes.
change, I think it's just self-explanatory. The way it's written up in the bylaws of the corporation, the top 3, the president of the council, vice chair of the council, and the mayor have to be on this board.
Okay.
So the only way that I can stay on the board is to take over the county commissioner spot, okay?
Okay.
So this makes me a member of the board, and the fair be a member of the board, and that's makes it legal.
I appreciate you for wanting to continue to do that, Mr. Jimwright. Thank you.
No, but now, Glenn gets to get on it too.
All right.
He could have had my spot, Mr. Calhoun.
I know.
One more meeting to go to this.
All right. Item number 3, application for a restaurant retail liquor license by D&G Ventures, Winsel's. I guess that's just a change of business. So we'll address that at that point. Marche is not going to be here this evening, so she said she didn't have an issue with that, so we'll move on that item. Item number 4 is application for a lounge retail liquor license class 1 by Players Sports Bar. Ms. Beard?
I don't have any issues with that.
Okay. I thought you said she didn't have any issues. I had to look down.
No, I don't.
All right, thank you. All right. Item number 5 is application retail beer and retail table wine license. McGee Road Z-Tech gas station change in ownership, District 5. I don't have an issue with that. Item number 6 is public nuisance, and that's self-explanatory. Mr. Mitchell, you had something you wanted to talk about before we go into the work session communication roster.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President and Council, I have been on this council for 50 months. Out of that 50 months, I have not missed a single city council meeting. That being said, I have seen us discuss everything from the NDO, from bagging leaves, but council, once again, I have never heard us debate, talk about the homicides or the gun violence here in the city of Montgomery. We have went into executive meeting. We have talked about everything here in the city of Montgomery, but we've never, not even with our committees, public safety, we have not put anything in public safety. I just don't think that we're doing enough. We have had 2 juveniles arrested for capital murder last week. We had a juvenile that was murdered last week, and we, as a council as a whole, have not addressed the issue. We have the county commissioners that's taking money from our community centers and dividing it among each other. They are putting our Office of Violence Prevention contract off, and we are regularly getting juveniles being assassinated here in the city of Montgomery. And we have not heard from our board of our board members for the Board of Education. These kids are being arrested in our school system. They're being murdered out of our school system. The board members are not saying anything. Our county commissioners are not saying anything. Are we the only people in Montgomery that represent Montgomery? It's a problem that we are not addressing. That the mayor and the superintendent is the only one that came out with a public statement about this young man being murdered. We're not hearing from anybody else. Nobody. And as a council, we have to step up. If they won't talk about it, we have to talk about it. It's 3 things. The only reason that we don't talk about it, either we don't know, we're not showing, or we don't care what's going on in the hood. And we gotta make a difference. And we gotta start here. Thank you, Mr. President.
Hey, that's boys in the hood.
You know it. That's boys in the hood. He just quoted boys in the hood.
Mr. Mitchell, I kind of agree with you. And what we'll do, I know you want to lead that, and you're on the Public Safety Committee, so we'll get with Mr. I think Pruitt is the chairman. We'll talk about some issues that we want to go through.
One thing, Mr. Calhoun, and to mention to Aronde's fact, Chip, we talk about it a lot during budget meetings, how Pike Road is really just pulling the wool over our eyes. By that, I mean, we pay county taxes. We get nothing from the sheriff's department. We get nothing from the maintenance department, but yet everybody in Montgomery, from Deer Creek to Regency Park to Madison Park, pays county taxes. And we get nothing, but yet we fund the police department in Pike Road. We fund their maintenance department to go out and fix potholes. That is not fair to the 88% of the people that live in the city of Montgomery. And they're just milking it. And I don't know how we do it. We make them get legislation. I don't know what we do, but there's over 10,000 people out there now.
So I'm sure it's been quite a few years since that agreement was put into place, so it's probably time to revisit it.
Yeah, I don't even know if there
We'll need
was
some
a-
help with those Pike Road legislators, Mr. Pruitt.
Yeah, I mean, we have to do something, Chip. It's just not fair, and especially where we're at
Oh,
with
I
our
agree
numbers
100%.
and people complaining and Rondé talking about it. It's not fair.
All right, thank you, Mr. Pruitt. Thank you, Mr.
Thanks.
Mitchell.
Before we leave public safety, Mr. President, could I have one moment, please?
Yes.
Just wanted to say that recently we had an incident where one of our officers was injured, wounded on duty. And with the preliminary information that's been provided to us, there's no question that the weaponry that this council and this administration provided to our police department played a key role in that incident in keeping the injuries to a minimum to our officers and able to play a role in suppressing some of the fire. So while we despise violence and we wish it was not necessary, we made a commitment that if the legislature was not going to keep our policemen safe, then we were. So we spent $350,000 on assault rifles, and 2 weeks ago, those rifles very well could have saved the lives of at least 2 or 3 of our officers.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Hill. All right, the work session, communication roster, Ms. Lori Will, the Museum of Fine Arts. You can introduce your team.
Do you want me to time, Mr. President?
Yes, ma'am. 10 minutes.
10 minutes?
Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, councilors. Thank you for giving us this time on your agenda today and for your service to the city of Montgomery. I'd like to introduce Bill Ford, who is Vice President of the Montgomery Museum of Fine Arts Board, who will succeed me in October 2024. And I'd like to introduce, if they are here, your appointments to the Museum City Board. Brandon Barker, President Calhoun is yours.
He's walking in the door.
And if they're here and they'll stand, that would be great. Natalie Wright, Councillor Riley is your appointment currently. Bill Ford, Mr. Grimes is Mr. Grimes' appointment. Susan Price is Councillor Jenwright's appointment. DeMonica Pugh is Ms. Johnson's appointment and could not be here today because of a death in the family. Cientia Carana is Councillor Beard's appointment. Lucy Jackson is out of town, is Mr. Szymanski's appointment. Kelly Gavin, Councillor Mitchell is your appointment, and Councillor Pruitt, I am your appointment, so thank you. All of you, I hope, received an email from me last week containing a cover letter for a proposed memorandum of understanding that puts out and clarifies the public-private partnership between the city and the association that has worked for over 60 years to both the benefit of the museum and the city. And it clarifies what that relationship is and points out that the museum is a very different organism than the zoo, the library, Parks and Recreation departments, and other departments. And part of that has to do with the fact that the Montgomery Museum of Fine Arts is the oldest museum in the state. Some points of clarification in the MOU that are important, we believe, to point out is that the city owns the building and the association owns the art collection. The MMFA board has 30 members on it, and I would like for those association members who are here to please stand. Association members. Thank you. Another important point, the board recruits, selects, and hires the director of the museum, and the director answers to the board. These are the norm for museum directors across the country. Elected officials, I'm not speaking about you, nor the mayor, come and go. Boards are made up of volunteers who have knowledge and expertise in the various areas necessary and essential to running a museum. For example, significant knowledge of art, expertise in education, in art making, fundraising, construction, community building and network, the law, business, banking, investments, etc. Board members have institutional memory and provide essential continuity for museum management, operations, programming, and fulfillment of mission. Now, board members aren't stagnant. The board members who are here today will roll off. Some of them will roll back on. And we are constantly looking for new board members to keep young people bring young people and keep young people on the board, and of course to represent the diversity of our city. The association raises approximately $1 million a year of the museum's annual budget, and the city and county each provide 40%. The association uses some of these monies to increase the salaries over and above what the city pays in order to attract the most qualified arts and development staff. For instance, the salary the city can pay for a museum director is $93,000. $93,000 is 43% of the salary paid to directors of similarly sized accredited museums in the Southeast. The association pays for the many educational programs for children, the care, insurance, exhibition of our art collections, the shipping, insurance, installation of traveled artworks for all exhibitions, whether our art is going out to other museums across the country or they are sending us their artwork to exhibit, and the production of public, family-friendly events, and to do all of these things with excellence. The association is a private 501c3 organization trusted by our funders, individual and corporate donors, foundations, local, state, and national agencies. Individual and corporate donors will not give to a government entity.
What are the benefits of the public-private partnership? Most importantly, accreditation. Montgomery Museum of Fine Arts is one of 1,099 of 43,000 museums in the United States and one of 7 in the state of Alabama. It can take decades to assure accreditation. No one, no collector in the US or elsewhere in the world will lend a piece of art or consider donating a piece of art to a non-accredited museum. Accreditation signals excellence to the museum community, to governments, and to funders. It also brings national recognition to a museum for its commitment to excellence, accountability, high professional standards, and continued institutional improvement. Now, it also assures funding from private individuals and companies. It provides credibility when applying for grants from foundations, local, state, and national governmental agencies, and it guarantees economic, cultural, and social benefits that the Montgomery Museum of Fine Art provides. You crossed out everything.
The Montgomery Museum of Fine Arts Board wishes to hire the best possible permanent director for the museum. The board seeks to recruit and consider qualified top-notch candidates, including candidates of color. Search firms and individuals who operate exclusively in the nonprofit organizational space are the most qualified to help us with that. We ask that you use your influence to enable us to allow the association to hire Al Head as interim director when his 90-day term as interim director with the city expires on February 1st. And we look forward to working with you to finalize and approve the MOU between the city and the museum, including meeting with you to answer your questions and discuss your ideas for how the museum can further serve our public. and I might say, Councillor Mitchell, especially our youth. We know that exposure to the arts goes a long way in helping our youth to learn social skills that can mitigate, and I'm not saying solve the problem, but mitigate the violence in our city. And we have a gift for you to take with you and look over between now and the next time we're with you.
Thank you, Lori and Bill. But from what I understand, the MOU is being reviewed right now by the city's legal department. I know that speaking with the council, and we came out to the reception during the Christmas break holiday. We support the public-private partnership, so I guess we just got to work through the MOU and figure out what parts we all will play in going forward in the museum.
Thank you, President Calhoun.
Any questions?
Quick question. Do we already have an existing MOU
We
that we
do.
operate under?
We do, and it is a binding MOU. But it's a very general MOU. And the need for this is really for all of us to get on the same page, thank you, about what are the association's roles and responsibilities to the museum and what the cities are to the museum.
Okay, great.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Happy New Year.
Mr. Keith Moore, update on Office of Violence Prevention.
Also 10 minutes.
Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon to the council. Thank you for inviting us to be here today. We're certainly,
Hold on, Mr. Moore. I expected the board to stay throughout the full council meeting. I'm just playing. Thank you, guys. Go ahead, Mr. Moore.
thank you again for allowing us to be here. We certainly stand with the same sentiment that Councillor Mitchell has expressed with our concern for the violence in the city. We do see that a lot of our youth are into some tough spots, but the Office of Violence Prevention, along with our partners, is doing a dead level best in helping to curb some of the violence in the city. Currently, we've had a pretty tremendous year. We've established some very, very important, notable things that we've been able to accomplish this year. In the area of just violence awareness and prevention, of course, we have national partnerships with the White House, Office of Gun Strategy, so we're working with the White House, the Cities United, other national organizations who are beginning to provide us with some technical expertise on how to better strategize on how to reduce some of the gun violence. As Councillor Mitchell mentioned, we are working on some technical assistance, of which we've just recently learned that the county has pulled back their part of that funding for the efforts that we're trying to accomplish. And we feel like if we're going to have the proper partnerships, we have to have the proper funding to be able to guarantee that we get the proper technical expertise on the ground to be able to help us to further develop and curb the gun violence in our city. Now, we've been able to accomplish a lot with myself and our liaison, Ms. Rochelle Tyus Holyfield. We've been doing our dead level best to accomplish a lot. We've participated in gun buyback programs that happen with Crime Stoppers, along with our policy advisor, senior policy advisor, Mr. Compton. We've had ID events that have helped with the boosting economic availability for those in our community, to include those from 15 to 50 to 60. But we're trying to help get people, properly employed. One of the things that we found through our grassroots efforts is that identification is a big part of that. So we did that event with the Montgomery County probate judge J.C. Love. Of course, we continue our Stop the Violence campaigns. We have our monthly walks. We have our walks and our campaign interaction. A lot of the councilors have been a part of that process. Many of you have been in attendance with those. We've continued to establish national partnerships. We've used a celebrity recently of Mr. Torrance Hatcher, who is known as Boosie. His participation in our events has been able to draw a younger crowd and a younger base out to the public events. And so with that, we've been able to have a greater reach and a broader spectrum of the young people that we've been able to reach in our community. In this calendar year, we've also established a Second Street team that is community-based. As you know, historically, we've had the Stop the Violence campaign, which is led by our liaison, Ms. Rochelle Tyus. But we had a brainstorm, and we shared with her, she shared with us, and we talked together, and we wanted the grassroots community effort to come forth. So we have partnered with just former people who are at risk in our community to help be a part of the solution. We really believe that if the community is involved, those who've been in high-risk situations, those who know community are a part of the process, it can help us solve the problems of gun violence in our community. So we've developed the Take Our City Back campaign. It is a grassroots organization that works along with the Stop the Violence campaign, along with our office, and we're developing strategies throughout the city to be on the ground with those young people in the community where they can become credible messengers to the young people in the community. It is one thing for us to talk about gun violence, but if you don't speak the language of the streets, you'll not be able to change any situation. And so as our liaison has said to us, we believe that we have to have people that are grassroots in the community that understand what's happening on the ground. Because one thing about it, we can't legislate morality, but we can legislate certain things, but the code of the street is different. And so we have to have people in the community who can have that influence. So we think that team is off to a great start. It was a part of our ID event. That actual event came out of our research and community meetings along with that team. We've been out in our community. We've been meeting in clubs. We've been meeting in churches. We've been meeting in just in the local community, just being in touch with the people on the street. Because the reality of it is that there's a big difference between what we see as city government and what's actually happening on the street. So we've been there. And again, as we say, many of you have been right there with us. And so as we've continued to work, our faith-based initiatives have been still intact. We still work with our faith-based organizations. We're working with our community-based organizations. Ms. Rochelle Tyus and myself have been in the schools doing direct mentorship with a number of young people. We're fielding calls because parents are calling now because we see a tremendous gap, and it's one of the things that Councillor Mitchell has been spurring with us about our youth violence interruption and retention program. Believe it or not, with all that we see happening, there are not many agencies that exist in our city that will take a young person who's in danger before they commit a crime and begin to work with them. They have to actually commit a crime to be on someone's radar screen. And that's a big gap that we see as the Office of Violence Prevention. They have to actually violate to get assistance. But what about the prevention? And so we're thankful to be working along with Councillor Mitchell and a couple other members of the committee to work on programs that are going to help us be able to do that. So we have partners with the Sheriff's Office, Probate Office, other city partners that are going to be a part of that process on how we begin to intervene with not just the problem with the young people in the streets, but the parents of those individuals. Because we truly believe that unless we get the minds of the parents, we can talk as long as we want to, we can turn as many children, but they have to go back to their home environment and survive. They have to go back to their community and survive. So we've got youth initiatives that are coming up. Again, depending on the funding, with the funding being in place and us getting the right people in place, we believe we can continue to make great headway in this area. So we've continued to work in our areas of domestic violence because we understand that gun violence is also involved in domestic violence in situations. Had a number of events that we've sponsored and partnered with other community partners concerning specifically domestic violence. So we're covering the youth violence, domestic violence. The hospital link portion is really contingent upon us getting the right technical expertise in place, which is what we were working with the council on getting. Again, we've got some funding questions there we've got to get in place, but we need to get our hospital link portion up. We're looking forward to getting that spun up as soon as we can, again, based on funding and getting the proper personnel in place. So we've also sponsored several different weekends, and we did a ceasefire weekend back during the summer. It wasn't something that was publicized very much through city effort, but it was publicized grassroots. We were able to work with our Take Our City Back team, get the word out on the streets with the people who were most involved and intimately and potentially involved in violent acts, and we held a whole ceasefire weekend, and we're proud to say that week in August, we saw no incidents. And so we're really proud to be able to get that word out and work with the local community to be able to do that. This year, we worked spring break campaign. We worked different communities within the city while the kids were out of school, went out and had direct contact and mentorship with them in some of our housing complexes. On our north side, on our south side, west side, east side, we went to the community and we worked directly with individuals in those communities. And I want to say that many citizens in Montgomery are concerned about the violence, but we have to have more citizenship that's willing to step up and be a part of the solution. Because we can put all the systems in place, but we have to have the citizenship step up and be a part of that also. So we've continued to do the work. We've had many opportunities to do violence interruption and violence prevention work by directly fielding calls when information comes into our office, being able to, and I want to publicly applaud Ms. Rochelle Tyus, especially for being able to navigate and negotiate and mitigate a lot of situations that the city never becomes aware of. And that's the beauty of what we do. When you don't know about it, we're doing our jobs. When we see the incidents on the news, then there's been a breakdown somewhere. And so we continue to do this work, again, doing that liaison work, doing the violence prevention intervention work, fielding questions, working on situations, taking direct mentorship calls and interventions from parents in our community, and we're gonna stay the course. As I often say, this violence has been a part of society since the book of Genesis, and it's gonna be here. The best thing we can do is do our best to reduce it as much as possible, to be a positive force, help rebuild our families, help rebuild all those support systems, our community systems, community centers. All these things are coming up. So prayerfully, as we continue to work as the OVP and work with our partners, we'll continue to see, make some headway in violence. Now, one of the things that we've also done is we've gone to several different conferences. We've been with Cities United and other national organizations. And one of the things that about this particular discipline is that it's very hard to measure and to track, because no one comes back to you and says, I almost killed someone, but I thought about what you said. They don't come back and tell you that part. But we do believe that we're making great headway as the OVP, and we're gonna stay the course, because we can never measure exactly who does not commit a crime, but we wanna continue to see the reductions as best we can in reducing gun violence and violent incidents in the city of Montgomery.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Any questions?
Yes, Mr.
Yeah, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Jenwright.
We're between 75 and 80 homicides this year so far.
Yes, sir.
Are you keeping statistics on what each one of those were, what happened, why there was a murder? Because I understand we got over 500 trauma events in the hospitals here where people didn't die, they just got shot.
Sure.
So that's one we don't even keep up with. We keep up how many of them die, and we don't even know how many die because we don't know how many of them made it through the first week or two at the hospital. But my question is the statistics on why, you know?
Why is always very sensitive, and here's where we have to be careful with our relationship with the Montgomery Police Department. We cannot interfere with investigation, so we have to be very careful about how we handle information and how we release that information because of ongoing investigations and things of that nature. So we do have access to information through our Montgomery Police Department. We do get information through direct interaction. A ton of it comes in through our liaison calls, and we're able to look at it from that perspective, but we do our best not to interfere in the sense that we would cause a problem for investigative purposes, but we do our best to track information. Now, to speak to that, a lot of the things that we're seeing are relational. Most of the folks who are committing crimes are not individuals who don't know one another. We're not just having random killings in Montgomery. These are people who, at some point or another, have crossed paths with one another, and then for some reason that relationship went bad or something was taking place that caused it to go bad. So one of the major things that we're seeing is these are all relationship-based situations for the most part, and we're seeing, domestics and things like that. But it's mostly relational. It's human relations issues, and resolution of conflict is one of the biggest things we're trying to tackle. Conflict resolution.
We got the, Helping Families Initiative at the county courthouse that does now.
Yes, sir.
Works for these kids in school, whatever.
Yes,
Is that
sir.
still being done, Mr. Mitchell?
Yes.
Still going?
Yes, sir. It is still actively going. We have done referrals to that program. But here's part of the difficulty that we're seeing, Councilor Jenwright, is we can offer as many services as possible, But if an individual doesn't want to take advantage of those services, then we don't really have a place to strong arm them into it. That's one of the things that we face when we started talking about youth and violence is who holds accountability for those actions. We can't legally hold a parent, we can't prosecute a parent for a child's action. We can encourage, we can try to, beseech, beg, encourage them to get help. But the reality of it is every citizen has a choice to not partake in what we do. We hear all the time, well, the rec centers aren't, the community centers aren't doing anything. Our community centers are open. We've got staff there. We're doing the work. But if the individual doesn't come, then it's not useful. So that's been part of our struggle there, is getting people to partake.
I
in those
appreciate you've
services.
gone to national convention meetings or whatever, but we're spending more money and the homicides are going up. I mean, somewhere along the line, we've got to change our way of doing things, or if there is a way. I mean, is this a problem nationwide and nobody knows the answer?
Yes, sir. It is a nationwide epidemic. Right now in our nation, guns to citizens is running like 7.3 or 7.4 number of guns to each individual in the United States. We have an epidemic in our nation, and we're working with agencies like Everytown and Mom Demands Action. It is out of control. Per capita, Alabama's pretty high.
Right.
But of course, our gun incidents are, numerically number to number not as bad, but our belief is one life lost is one too many.
Exactly. Birmingham, I understand now, Birmingham's number one in the country in homicides.
Per capita, yes, sir, per
And,
capita.
That's a bad statistic.
But it is a nationwide epidemic, I promise you, and it's not just in the cities, it's in the rural areas, it's everywhere. The number of mass shootings is off the Richter scale. It is a nationwide epidemic that we're facing. And let me add this to that. It's not just about the weapons, but it's about the mental health of our communities also. The mental health crisis is causing a lot or is undergirding a lot of the violence that we see. When people don't get proper mental health, they end up in these situations, just one snap and lives are lost.
Mr. President.
Ms. Beard?
Yes, I just want to say that Mr. Moore and Ms. Tyus, Keith and Roe have been to my school many times. And for an incident several months ago, Ms. Tyus brought someone from the Second Street Committee, I guess,
Yes,
Mr. Terry, and because a grandmother was pleading for their help. And she made a difference in that child's life that day, on the spot. Didn't tell me, oh, I can't get to it. I have to wait. Julie, I'm on the way. That speaks volumes to me. They answer my phone calls, they answer my text, they answer emails, and they're on the streets. If you've never walked as a city councilman or anybody works with the city, if you have not walked on a walk with them, a violence prevention walk, you need to do so. It is an eye-opener. And I've been down streets I would have never walked down because I'm not in that vicinity. But it was an eye-opener for me. I think I can echo what Mr. Mitchell has been saying all along, too. And as an educator, it's the children, but we got to get to the parents. The parents have got to know what these kids are doing. And we're facing some of that with one of our districts in my area, and I have already talked to somebody. We need to do a parent initiative. We need to bring the parents back in. We don't have the days of PTA and things like that. And that is the part of the problem. We don't get to the parents, and if we don't get to these children in the elementary schools and start educating them with law awareness classes and the things that we used to do eons ago that worked, then it's lost. But kudos to you and Rode for doing a great job. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Councilor.
Thank you, Ms. Beard. Anyone else? Question?
Mr. Moore,
Yes, sir.
can you tell us how important that money that the county commissioner pushed over, that we can have this program up and running before the summer, that may be
Yes.
one of the most deadliest times that people are out in the streets? Can you talk about how important that money was?
Pulling back those funds has drastically affected our ability to hire, our ability to get the systematic funding in place, the technical expertise, because there are systems that we know worked in other places. We use all the experience that we have here locally. I believe you me. Ms. Tyus has a wealth of knowledge. We do the best we can with what we have. But when you have expertise that you can bring in that has garnered results in other areas, you need to take advantage of that expertise. Unfortunately, that doesn't come free. That comes through us partnering with organizations that will pour into us and help us systematically develop. So when you take away, a large percentage of our funding, half of our funding, then it limits the time that we have to work issues, the efforts and the quality of expertise that we can bring in to help us deal with these issues, and it limits our ability to continue to build out our office and build out what we believe is an ecosystem. Because what we must understand is it's not just the Office of Violence Prevention. It's building out a whole ecosystem that undergirds it's youth services, it's recreation, it's the faith-based community, it's city government, it's community-based organizations, it's moms and pops, and it takes a lot of time to build all that out. But when you have a proper plan, a strategy, and expertise, because you can put a strategy in place, but if it doesn't have the proper expertise, you're just going to be spinning your wheels. So it is super important. And pulling back those funds has drastically hampered our effort.
And Mr. President,
Mr. Mitchell.
now we're not talking about $1 million. We're talking about $80,000 that they pulled away. $80,000 divided by 5 is $16,000, but they got $1 million that they put in each district. But they don't want to give $16,000 to stop some of the stuff that we are seeing in the city of Montgomery.
Got to call him out.
Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Mr. Moore, Mr. President,
Ms. Beard?
does this, with them pulling that fund, your third position that you want to hire, does that directly affects that?
It doesn't directly affect my immediate hiring, but the allocation is not for that money. The allocation, of course, the funding source makes a difference on what I can hire.
Okay.
So
Thank
when we're dealing with the initiatives that we're talking about now, we're directly talking about youth violence and hiring to that, and part of our technical support came through that funding.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So the technical support is going to help build out the full ecosystem.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. President, I had a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Moore, what reason did the county give you?
I haven't been given a reason, sir.
Okay.
All right.
Mr. President,
Mr. Mitchell.
we all know why.
All right, we move it on. Thank you, Mr. Moore.
Thank you, sir.
Dr. Benjamin Jones, update on community action.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Welcome to Alaska.
Good evening, Mr. President and councilors. Thank you for the opportunity to come and share with you this afternoon. I'm wearing a mask because I'm just a day out of the flu or something of that nature, so I don't want to share my germs.
Thank you for sharing your conversation.
So I decided to cover them up. But certainly good to be out with you this afternoon. Talk about Montgomery Community Action, the agency that is going into its 59th year here in the county of Montgomery County. And I've shared with you our updated annual report, but inside of that is just a flyer, the Community Action Connection. It has a few pointers. Don't have a real long speech or anything, just letting you know kind of the things that we have going on. Montgomery Community Action, as you know, and we thankful to have our board chair, Ms. Roberta Collins here, and our board member, Ms. Terrell, Ms. Burnett Terrell, and some others may be out there as well. But any board members who we have here, we're thankful to have them sharing with us this afternoon. Montgomery Community Action, of course, is a big economic driver in the Montgomery community. We have roughly 300 employees, and we have a roughly $20 million budget. So we are feeding into the economics of the community. And we serve, as you see, we've touched about 89 1,511 of the 226,000 plus households or individuals in Montgomery. That's about 40% of the individuals in this county have been touched by Montgomery Community Action. Next to that, it says 8,000 households receive direct energy assistance. What they're just saying is that we had that 8,000 of the real 13 plus thousand that were, all of these 13,000 are in a crisis mode. So when persons come to Montgomery Community Action in a crisis, we assist them immediately and directly. The 8,000 came in a crisis mode. We assisted them, and then we had 5,455 that avoided service interruption. What that is saying is those 8,000 probably already had their services disconnected, but we immediately got them returned to services. 500 households had energy services restored immediately as well down there at the bottom. So we've had all of these persons were in crisis mode. She actually included the 500, but the 500 should be included with the 8,000. It should be 8,500 because all of those persons were in crisis mode. And I sometimes hear in the community that if you don't have an appointment at Montgomery Community Action, you can't get service, but we reserve service for anyone who comes to the agency in a crisis. That is, if your utilities is disconnected or you have a letter of eviction for your rent or whatever might be the case, then we serve you immediately and work to get you back into good standings. 5,600 families benefited from nutritional support through, and that number is probably low. We partner with a number of areas and people in the area to serve food to the community. And of course, through our community services program, we have some gardening programs that we provide for those gardens during the summer and the gardening season. In our Head Start program, we serve about 1,203 children and families. It's 1,107 Head Start and about 96 early Head Start children. And we're working with those families. And one of the things that is not on that list is our self-sufficiency program. And we work with a number of people to get them a trade, and we partner with Trenholm Community College, and we pay for persons to go and get a trade, and we have a number of people who go through our program and they come out and they have jobs and they're self-sufficient. The other thing is we're going into about our 60th year in 2025, and we're certainly going to have a great celebration, but what we would like to celebrate most, and the way we would like to celebrate, is to have a year where we have a banner situation where we get people out of poverty and into working jobs. We may have a gala and all of that, but our biggest accomplishment in our 60th year would be to get as many people as possible out of poverty. And certainly one of the things that we're seeing a lot of right now is homeless people. And so we're having a lot of requests for people to assist them with housing. We have a program that we'll help people. We'll put them up for 30 days in a hotel or something of that nature if they qualify. And then after that, we try to help them through our partnerships to get into some type of housing that we can also assist them with those fees for down payments to get the lights cut on, the rent, and things of that nature. But once they get past that, then they have to take care of paying those bills themselves. The other thing that we have a lot of right now that is still lingering is people with very high rent that did not get them paid during that period when the county had or the state had a lot of money to assist with back rent from the COVID period. Our limitation is $2,000 from the federal funds that we have per household. We have people that present to us rent bills that are $5,000, $8,000. I'm not sure how they get to be, other than the fact that we were in COVID, and some people have extremely high rental and For the federal dollars, we can't even pay the $2,000 if they can't pay the rest. We can't pay any unless we know where they're going to be able to pay the next month's rent. So we have that as a struggle right now, and that's something that we're dealing with tremendously. So we're just thankful to the City Council for the funding that you all contribute to Montgomery Community Action. We're trying to make wise use of those funds. We're proud, of course, again and I'll state this because, of course, I've been with Community Action for 10 years now, and we're doing a lot of work to get our house in complete order. We've had 3 consecutive years of clean audits. We're moving things in the right direction, and so we appreciate the support of the City Council and the other governing bodies and other foundations and people who contribute to our cause. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Any questions?
Dr. Jones, congratulations. I see the governor just awarded different agencies money, and I'm great that she saw the need for Montgomery to get some of that money that she allocated.
Absolutely, thank you.
I have a question, Dr. Jones.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you said it and I just don't understand it, but how are there repeat people that come back to get assistance?
Say that again.
Are there repeat customers that come back to get assistance every other month or something for their light bill? And
Yeah, for LIHEAP and for LIHEAP assistance, people can get repeat assistance, but they can't get it but twice a year. They can get it once in a season.
Okay.
So if it's a heating season, in the wintertime they can get assistance. In the
Okay.
summertime they can get
Okay.
assistance.
I was
But they
just
can't get
curious.
assistance twice in the same season. But these numbers represent, these numbers, the 8,000, those represents individual households. Those are not repeat
Okay.
situations.
Okay.
None of the numbers that I have here, if they were repeated, they're not in my numbers.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? Thank you, Dr. Jones.
Thank you.
Any other council have anything? All
Yeah,
right.
Go ahead, Ed.
Go ahead, Mr. Grant.
I've got a problem. I have a
We
situation.
can't fix that.
I know.
Go ahead, Mr. Grant.
And I need to figure out, I need animal control, I guess, in here. We had someone that got dog bitten over the weekend in the last 4 or 5 days in Forest Hills. And the problem is they're hearing that we've had multiple problems with this person. They're not supposed to even own dogs. They left these pit bulls in the backyard. They break out, bite the neighbor, and then he's gone. He doesn't put the dogs up like property. I guess my point is, and he had dogs back in the yard the other day. When do we arrest somebody? What? I don't. I'm confused, folks. I don't know.
Mr. Grant, MPD, can you answer that for him?
Maybe.
Calling all cars.
That's your answer.
1 Adam 12.
Councilor Grimes, what if we make a commitment that between the work session and the start of the regular session, that we will get you an answer?
Mr. Hill, that
Thank you,
sounds
Mr.
great.
Mitchell. Thank you, Chip. Thank you. All right,
Mr. President, before we go,
Mr. Mitchell.
and you know, we complain about seeing all the homeless people here in the city of Montgomery. Once again, the county has opted to carry over funding the homelessness. I don't understand if this is an issue that has to be addressed. Why our partners that we sat down 2 years ago and said that we were gonna do this with Thrive. We was at those meetings, we talked about it. But then when it comes to them writing those checks of funding these programs, because at the end of the day, who get those calls? The city council. Who get blamed? The mayor. And I'm telling her, it's time for us to call out the county commissioner on not holding up their part of the bargain. Because we're seeing that, we're getting that, Charlie. You getting those calls.
Well, I think,
Mr. Pro
I think
Tem?
the problem is the water park's more important.
The water,
All right, okay.
Over there, it must be.
it must be. It has to be. White waters must be more important.
All right, I'll reach out to the chairman and we'll see if we can put a meeting together to discuss those items that came up about the crime prevention and the homeless thing in the city of Montgomery. All right, if nothing else, we'll meet at 5 o'clock for the regular meeting. This meeting is adjourned.